Alright, hello ladies and gentlemen, been a while since I've made an Adabana on Tales video. Once again, just like the other two line novels I've had to do, it's the music, the desktop noise, the desktop audio has been cut, so you won't be able to hear any of the voices or the music or anything, because it's all copyright claimed, and I do not want to get in trouble with that shit again, like I did with the first episode of this, so yeah. Let's just carry on with the story now. I'm pretty sure I remember what's going on, but hold on, this is the illustrated book. Open the text log. There's no text log anymore. Never mind, looks like we're just gonna move on. He may, sure he may. When she awoke, she felt as though she had suddenly surfaced from the sea floor. I see. Gasp. The heavy pressure on her body was lifted, awakening her 5 senses all at once. Huff, huff. Trini sat bolt upright and gasped for breath, her shoulders heaving. She felt a dizziness akin to when one's windpipe was blocked, then suddenly cleared. I can breathe? Are you alright? I found you collapsing here. It scared the daylights out of me. You don't look injured. What happened to you? Is this? Shihime took a look around. To her confusion, she was in the grand hall and it looked perfectly normal. I was speaking with Lady Adahime, and then she grabbed my arm and there was blue ink. Blue ink? Yes, I watched it flow from Lady Otahime's palm to my sleeve. Ah. Shihime held up her kimono sleeve to show Kurofuda, only to stare in surprise. It was no longer stained deep blue, but back to being pure white. No matter how closely she peered at it, it had its own pristine sheen to it. Rhyme. But Shihime murmured weakly. She slowly shook her head and looked at Kurofuda imploringly. I'm certain that I saw blue ink, and it did not merely form blots, but moved with a mind of its own. It was a blue that sought to rewrite everything. The more Shihime went over it, the more self-doubt she began to feel. The lucid look in Kurofuda's clear eyes was a stark reminder to her that hers must have looked the exact opposite. And finally the blue ink became seawater that flooded the entire grand hall. I was drowning in that cold seawater, struggling desperately, and Shihime trailed off at that point. She gazed around with trepidation once more, only to find no trace of seawater on her kimono, the tatami-covered floor, the walls, or the ceiling. How can this be? Did I dream it all? The possibility left her at such a loss she was suddenly struck with a terror that made her wilt in place. It had all been so vivid, she had felt it clearly, but if there was no drop of water to be seen, then perhaps that was all it had been. Shihime. Kurofuda placed a hand on Shirihime's shoulder as she trembled with anxiety. Calm down and start from the beginning. Tell me exactly what happened. Nothing happened, it was all a dream. Shirime almost said as much, but stopped herself. Kurofuda had a warmth in his tone and bearing. He wasn't asking her to take the easy way out. He was asking her to share exactly what she had felt. Alright, I apologize for losing my composure. Shirime took a deep breath, let it out, and began replaying her strange experience from start to finish. Now I see. Kurofuda listened to Shirihime's faltering explanation with infinite patience. Once she was done, he unfolded his arms and nodded. It's hard to know if all that really happened to you, or if you dreamed it up. Both truths are plausible. I suppose. Kurofuda considered the scales perfectly balanced between the two options, and only a definitive answer had the ability to tip them in one way or the other. At least, that was the impression Shirihime had, until... You know what? Let's assume it really happened. Really? Shirihime's eyes widened when Kurofuda tipped the scales himself. If it was just a dream, then there's nothing to worry about, but if it was real, then it's quite concerning. Let's assume Adahime generated large amounts of her own ink, and used it to delude you for her own purposes. Wouldn't it stand to reason that she's in fact an Adabana spoiler? Lady Otahime, an Adabana spoiler? The thought was a staggering one to Shirahime. Of course she isn't, part of her protested, while the other part of her agreed of course she is. But Lady Otahime remained herself all throughout what happened. She never took on the form of a fearsome Oni. Maybe the transformation isn't complete yet, or maybe she used ink to redraw her form. Can such a thing be possible? It would be unprecedented, but there's no reason why it can't be. Kurofuda spoke at a deliberate pace, like he was thinking back on previous incidents. Adabana spoilers tend to be chaotic and unstable. They are slaves to desires and care only about fulfilling them, like in Hanasaka Jisan. But if someone transforms into an Adabana spoiler while retaining intelligence enough to manipulate ink, disguising themselves will be easy enough. Oh, I see. Then does that mean... Shihime's sad gaze finished the question for her, one which Kurofuda answered firmly. If Otahime is an Adabana spoiler, that would explain this illustrated book's stubbornness. Stubbornness? Oh, you mean the page is repeating? Shirima opened the illustrated book. She had kept it firmly in her grasp even while drowning. Yes, that might be because Otahime wrote over them with her ink. It was page after page of the same word for word and ardent wish for the same day to be repeated forever and ever, made manifest. It was like a labyrinth in book form, where it was impossible to find anything but the same passage, no matter how many times one turned the pages. I still wonder one thing, though. Yes? If she truly has rewritten the story, why do it in this manner? Good question. There had to be better ways to rewrite it. For starters, she could turn into an Oni and remove us from the illustrated book forcibly. Or she could write, and then the same day kept repeating forever, and thus bring about a forcible end to the story. If the story had ended, we would have considered our restoration job complete and left. She could have gotten away with it cleanly that way. So why did she take this approach? Shirahime closed her eyes and murmured a question into the darkness she saw behind closed eyelids. In that darkness she envisioned Otahime clutching her wrist. She saw that beautiful smile, that fucking mysterious smile, and heard that beautiful voice. With the power to write whatever I please on these white pages, I choose to fill them with only happy things. Fun things, beautiful things, and a happiness that lasts forever. What could be better? If you care about tomorrow, make it a happy tomorrow. If you dream, make it a happy dream. That was what Lady Otahime said, but were those her true thoughts? That colour in her eyes, what is it that I can sense? Oh, Shirahime sensed. It definitely wasn't joy. It doesn't seem to be anger, so I'm going to go with resignation. Resignation. Yes, that is what I sensed. Lady Otahime wanted to fill the pages of the book with happy things, but she knew that she could not. Shirahime? Shirahime opened her eyes again when Kurofuda spoke up. I was thinking about Lady Otahime's true feelings. I myself had lost all understanding of what feelings were until recently, so I found myself hesitant to speculate about such matters. Still, when she thought back to the colour of Otahime's eyes, she was stricken with a feeling of helplessness, like she was sinking into a bottomless ocean. Perhaps Shirahime was too emotionally inexperienced, or perhaps Otahime was experienced at hiding her thoughts. But she felt a momentary flash of dizziness. It was too fleeting to be a daydream. It was gone in the span of a breath. But at the end of that breath span, Shirahime found that her right hand was balled up and raised to her chest. I know the feeling that was brimming in Lady Otahime's eyes. Beneath her clenched fist, her heart was making an unsteady sounding thump noise. So, what do you want to do? Kurofuda asked after watching Shirahime quietly. If Otahime really has become an Adabana spoiler, what do you want to do about the story? Confront her and put it back the way it belongs, or let her falsify the story in peace? Well, Shirahime hesitated. Kurofuda would obviously have preferred to put the book back the way it belongs, but he would defer to Shirahime if she thought differently. What do I wish to do with the story? Don't make me do this. If Otahime was an Adabana spoiler falsifying the story to repeat the same passage endlessly, was that truly something that needed correcting? Stories are as much a reflection of people's feelings as anything. Adabana spoilers' alterations could, therefore, be valid forms of storytelling. But even if that were true, I question if that is truly what Lady Otahime wants. There was the doubt that Shirahime couldn't shake Otahime's true intentions. You don't have to decide right here on the spot, of course, and we still don't know for sure that Otahime is an Adabana spoiler. Kofune softened his tone as Shirahime remained paralyzed with the decision. But you'll have to make up your mind sooner or later. I am aware. Shirahime met Kurafuda's direct gaze and nodded firmly. Something was beginning to take tangible shape in the white fog that filled her heart. I wish to know what Lady Otahime is thinking. I wish to know if her rewrite of the story is truly what Lady Otahime had intended. That's your focus, not how to change the story? Yes, for this is Lady Otahime's and Urshimatara's story. Shirahime rose to her feet with a serene smile. Just then, Eep noise. Shirahime let out an uncharacteristic shriek. Something was wriggling on the inner side of her obi. Oh, jeez. What's wrong? It's something is inside my kimono. Hey, pervert. This was an undersea palace. Had some small fish made their way inside the grounds? Shirahime checked under her obi. Her fingertips brushed against something, giving her the sensation of touching a floppy goldfish. Oh, my. When she opened her hands to look at what she'd caught, her voice fell, as did Kurafudo's. A bookworm? Squeak! Squee, squee! Yes, it was a bookworm. A relatively mild-mannered one, judging from how it acted in Shirahime's hands. Squee, squee, squee! After pitching itself to and fro for a few seconds, it seemed almost to make eye contact with Shirahime before subsiding in resignation. What was it doing in my obi, and how long was it there? Shirahime thought back to when Otahime grabbed her arm. She was distracted by more pressing matters to pay much mind, but at the time she had indeed felt something minorly out of place at her waist. Perhaps the bookworm had dove into Shirahime's obi to flee the blue ink. If so, then maybe that dream was not a dream at all. Probably a bookworm that ate part of the original illustrated book. Kurafuda declared quietly, his tone was somber, as if he was steeling himself for what was coming. Would that mean that the real book still has worm-eaten holes? Lady Otahime has kept them hidden from us by writing over them? Yes, exactly. It's a pretty safe bet that Otahime is an Adabana spoiler now. The question I've got is, what's the bookworm doing here? I wonder... Oops, didn't mean to do that. Bookworm is a clue as to how we can repair a book, thus it would follow that it could also clue us in about the falsified passages, as it just did. But if an Adabana spoiler has rewritten the book, the first thing it would do is eat the bookworms. In theory, a bookworm could run and hide and stay out of danger, but it's been quite a while since Hime became an Adabana spoiler. Could a bookworm really elude her for that long here in the Dragon Palace, her own domain? That's the question, isn't it? As Kurafuda voiced his thoughts, the bookworm melted away, leaving a little puddle in Shirahime's hands. What do we do with the sink? What would happen if we returned it to the book? Well, it would probably... Just as Kurafuda was about to say more, oh shit. Why, there you are. I've been looking all over for you. Oh, fuck. Oh, I can't use spacebar. I forgot about that. Squeaky noise. A familiar voice purred behind Shirahime, making her stiffen in place. Lady Otahime. Oh shit, fuck, 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 shit, fuck. When she turned around, she was greeted with the sight of Otahime's usual smile. Shit, fuck, shit, fuck, shit, fuck, shit, fuck. But that beguiling charm and beauty, the likes of which could swallow an onlooker's soul, that gave her pause. Was it because she knew of her true form? Shirahime, run! Oh, were you supposed to say that out loud? Oh god. Oh god! Shirahime gasped at Kurafuda's alarm tone. I can't do anything about this since it's a novel. Yet, Otahime wasn't looking at Kurafuda or Shirahime. There you are. I've been looking all over for you, Otahime said, directly at the ink pulled in Shirahime's hands. She had been looking for the bookworm, the trump card that could restore the book to its rightful form. As Otahime motioned to take a step forward, Kurofude leapt out in front of her and swung his brush. The black line he drew grazed Otahime's attire, leaving a visible cut marred with black ink like a scorch mark. Shirime sprang into action as she saw Otahime shrink back from Kurofude's show of force. "You won't escape!" Otahime called after her. Her self-possession was gone, and in its place was bloodlust and resentment. Shirime's knees shook. It was as if a cold whip were aimed at her back. She quickly righted herself. She scolded her unreliable legs and kept running, creating distance between her and Otahime. Oh crap. Jesus Christ. This is a horror game, bro. Human hands and feet move so very deftly. Kurofude was keeping her too occupied to give chase. Her voice was growing distant as Shirahime continued onward. But there was no urgency in her tone. In fact, it was regaining the self-possession that Otahime had lost prior. "You mustn't forget, though, humans are land creatures, and this is the bottom of the sea. When I say you won't escape, you never will." That voice is creepy. When Shirahime turned back, it was because Otahime's voice had taken on an unnatural ring, reminding her of something. She was reminded of the old man who had undergone that ghastly transformation before Shirahime's eyes. His familiar form had formed cracks from which his freakish form had burst out. One might even call it an Adabana spoiler melting. Now it was happening all over again. Oh! Oh crap! Red, coral-like cracks ran up and down Otahime's limber figure before it visibly peeled away, revealing a hideous red monstrosity beneath. Ugh. Ugh! The figure let out a pained howl and undulated, shedding its old skin like so many bits of hashed eggshell. Everything went blue. She must have let go of her consciousness for one brief moment, and that moment the web became irrevocably transformed. What's happening? She found herself in a blue storm. That was the best way she could describe what she saw. The scenery was awash with a deep darkness. Amidst it were little pale motes of light, so faint that they were dimmer than the stars behind the clouded sky. The dim specks of light weakly illuminated anything that passed within their orbit. Torn seaweed, broken shells, limp, motionless fish, red and white fragments of buildings nearby, all flying by at incredible speed. Oh, how awful. Shirahime peered at her hands in the darkness. She could barely make out her now ink-free hands and the bubbles of air coming from her mouth. It seemed she was back underwater again. Unlike the last time Otahime's blue ink had filled the grand hall with seawater, this time she was thrown from the crumbling palace into the deep. Oh shit. Luckily, as was the case when she first visited the Dragon Palace, she had no trouble breathing. When Shirahime looked up, she gaped down and let out a bunch of air bubbles all at once. There was a slimy sheen stretching out of her head. Holy shit. It was the Adabana spoiler only that Otahime had become a fish monster more enormous and disturbing than anything she had seen so far. It was like a giant dragon that swam like a fish with the fins of a turtle, only on its face did any vestiges of humanity remain. On that face? That face had any vestiges of humanity remaining? It kicked up violent eddies of water with every twist of its body and every stroke of its fins. I think that looks really cool. I can't even lie. The same eddies that were now carrying her, the fish, and all of the debris. That's a cool character post. Then Shirahime spotted a small figure amid the dim lights. Kurofude! Kurofude seemed to be locked in battle with the Adabana spoiler. He was struggling against the currents, but nonetheless managing to dodge every snap of its jaws, every swipe of its fins, and every whip of its tail. But slice as he might with his brush, the Adabana spoiler showed no signs of faltering. Kurofude would run out of strength far before it would. Her eyes met Kurofude's. The look that he gave her screamed, "Run! I cannot do that." Shirahime shook her head. She couldn't do that, even if it was Kurofude asking her to do it. Firstly, she had no stamina of her own. No amount of stalling on Kurofude's part would allow her the time to outrun that thing. Secondly, Kurofude did not look like he was going to win this battle. "I apologize, Kurofude, but I have gained one insight from this. Perhaps Lady Otahime cannot be stopped. If escape is impossible regardless, then I will make a gamble." Shirahime began swimming her way through the water toward the Adabana spoiler. She was not immune to the fear that its turbulent motions and massive form struck within her, but she was empowered by the conviction that this was their only hope. She chided her own trembling limbs and focused on making her way forward, to the exclusion of all other thoughts. Eventually, the Adabana spoiler seemed to take notice of Shirahime. It twisted deftly in the water and opened its massive jaws to swallow her. Oh crap! She could see Kurofune desperately making his way toward her out of the corner of her eye. However, she swam not toward him, but toward the terrifying Adabana spoiler closing in on her. She swam into its maw, into a darkness that flickered like fire in the water. It swallowed her whole. Oh, well, that's nice. Yeah, it could be mean and end the video here, but I'm not that mean, and it would be a very short video, so we'll keep going. It was a familiar feeling. I'm just gonna, hold the mouse like this. She was in a strange place, carried along by a strange torrent, distracted by the glimpses of scenery rapidly flying by. Fragments of thoughts and memories flitted around her. Every time she touched one, it would melt away without a trace. Without a trace, except... The girl was alone that day. It was long since past the time they had promised to meet, and there was no sign the boy would come at all. Will he forgo his visit today? She gazed down at the illustrated book she had idly picked up, but her eyes merely skimmed over the writing, not registering what it said. She was in no mood to venture into the expansive realms within illustrated books right now. Paper was paper, images were images, text was text. Try as she did, she couldn't register anything but the rough texture of the paper at her fingertips. I do not wish to countenance the fact that he would never come back, but the thought crossed the girl's mind, and it hurt her. Even if the boy came walking in like nothing was wrong, even if the boy laughed off her, fretting as silly, that hurt would stay with her. Because the day would come sooner or later, whether he showed up today or not. In fact, all his showing up would mean that today wasn't the day. She could hear her pocket with that watch ticking. Even when she used to tuck it away at the bottom of her nagamochi chest or leave it unwound till it stopped, the sound of its ticking would linger in her ears. Would that I could stop time itself? Would that I could stop time itself? But that would be impossible. It would only appear to have stopped. It would still march on eventually, and inevitably. Her empty gaze roamed through the air before eventually settling on the front cover of a book. Urashima Taro. As she registered the name of the book, her eyes, dark as the nighttime seas, flickered faintly. It must have been so hard for Lady Otahime. She closed the book in her hand and reached for Urashima Taro. Doing so, she was punishing herself, although she didn't realize it. Then she jerked in place, startled as at the door suddenly opening. She pulled her hand back sharply. It was a midsummer day outside. She could feel the humid air through the crack of the door and hear the cicadas cry outside. The silhouette outlined in the doorway with the sun's bright rays was unmistakably that of the boy. Sup, bitch? Sorry, I kept you. The boy looked apologetic, but there was not a smile of satisfaction on his face. I finally found that version of Urashima Taro, the one that's different from the one we read. I had to beg and plead to borrow it so I could show you. The girl felt a deluge of emotion well up inside of her, and she found herself unable to speak. Instead, the girl cast the boy a look akin to that of a wounded bird pining for the skies above. It was then she saw it. The way the boy's blue eyes lit up with pride was a light more dazzling than that of the midsummer sun. At that very moment, Shirahime was wrenched away from this world of tender reminiscence. The scene turned into the scattering of Adabana blossoms. Yet she did not let the feeling in her heart go, and it shined a more vivid colour for it. Shirahime was jolted back awake by a roar that made her shiver. It was dark, so dark she couldn't even see her own hands. She tried to feel around blindly for a hint at where she was, but nothing. It was at that point that she realized there was something cold and elastic unpleasantly wrapped around her. Shirahime frantically retraced her memories, trying not to panic. Finally, she remembered that she had been swallowed up inside the Adabana spoiler's maw. Am I in the Adabana spoiler's body? The conclusion she drew made her shiver again. The pit of terror in her stomach spread through her body like a black mold. She had held together thus far, but she was on the verge of being crushed. She squeezed her eyes shut. She opened her eyes at the sound of muffled noise, but she could barely believe what she saw. The darkness had been rendered before her very eyes. It looked like someone had slashed diagonally down through black cloth and ripped it open the rest of the way by hand, leaving a massive tear. Are you alright? The tear widened. Grifune wedged himself inside the opening and yelled out to her. Grifune, what is this? Hold out your hand, quick! Grifune barked, abandoning his usual calm. Shirima had decided not to ask questions. She lunged at the hand he extended out toward her and grabbed it. She felt a powerful tug draw her toward the tear. Once Shirime made it out, she finally understood what was happening. Grifune had slashed open the Adabana spoiler's throat to rescue Shirime after she had been swallowed. Ink flowed from the Oni's wound in lieu of blood, surrounding Shirime in a murky blue cloud. The scene was like a newborn baby emerging from the womb. Grifune fought the current as he held on to Shirime. Once he saw her under the illumination of the dim lights, however, his eyes widened sharply. What's with the get-up? Shirime followed Kurifuda's line of sight and looked down at herself and stared in amazement. Her kimono had changed from a brilliant white to a different colour entirely. The colour of the sky? That was the first impression Shirime drew from the distinct dark hues of her kimono and its embroidery. A vivid scene flitted briefly through her mind. Brilliant sun rays and the endless blue sky glimpsed among them. Shirahime did not yet realize it, but it was more than just her kimono and obi that was changed. She had a new accessory. As her jet black hair floated in the sea like a dark cloud, it was adorned with a bright coral comb, seashells and pearls all giving it a magical sheen. Though delicate in design, it exuded power, a trick of the dim light perhaps, but one that made her seem clad in the very life force of the sea. Interesting. On closer inspection, the summer sky kimono turned to deep ultramarine as it reached her feet. She was the very image of how fish appear just below the surface of the water, shimmering as they do in all manner of hues as the light hits them. The marine that had arisen inside of her had dyed her garment and even formed accessories to match it. This came from me? Did my thoughts overflow from my mind? Shirime gasped softly, and Kurifuda gave a knowing nod. It is the ink you've created. I see. Shirime nodded absently. How in the world— no, never mind that. Kurifuda seemed just as confused, but he dropped the subject with his typical decisiveness. Likewise, Shirime understood that they had bigger concerns at the present. Something tells me my brush case won't be able to hold all this ink. Pour it on the brush directly, if you would. Yes, of course. Grifune took the arm wrapped around Shirime and held it out in front of her and gripped his brush. Shirime could see what he was going for, and so slid her hand beneath his. She then gripped the brush and Kurifuda supported her hand from above. That noise. The Adabana spoiler recovered with a roar. It was a terrifying din that could give one goosebumps, but they no longer feared it at all. Here goes. Right. Shirime looked sharply forward and focused on her fingertips. She took the feelings brimming within her and funneled them into the brush. It was her first time attempting such a thing, but it went off without a hitch. It was surely an instinctive act innate to Shirime's very being, like breathing, hatching, or blooming. Noise. Kurifuda let out a hiss from between clenched teeth. Perhaps he was having trouble managing the brush's sudden and plentiful influx of ink. Yet he maintained his posture and toughed it out. Finally, he took the now sky-blue inked brush and began moving it through the air. The ink on its invisible canvas showed no signs of dissolving in the water. Horizontal strokes, vertical strokes, long and short. At times he would lose himself in the details, at other times he would draw freely. Eventually the brushstrokes formed a word. Light. The word itself looked resplendent, and when it was fully formed it glowed with a brilliant brightness. It was the glaring light of summer, something that would never ordinarily reach the seabed. It dissolved mercilessly through the blue-tinged darkness and illuminated the area with the hues of the sky on a clear sunny day. As the light enveloped them, they felt the strange sensation of being flung to the sky. They squeezed their eyes shut. The world spun around beyond their closed eyes as it was painted over in entirely new colours. As their consciousness slowly returned to them, the first thing they felt was a light shining brightly, so brightly it pierced their eyelids. Then came the strong smell of seawater and the sounds of crashing and receding waves. It was the first scene they had visited in this illustrated book realm. The deep blue sky that permeated the spirit, the towering thunderheads, the straight line of the horizon, the sun's rays searing it all. Shirahime and Kurofude drifted ashore. They woke at more or less the same time. Before they so much as exchanged a word, they opened the illustrated book to check it. Those maddeningly repetitive pages of partying were gone, and in their place were several new pages. Urashima Taro spent his days enjoying the festivities, until one day a thought crossed his mind. He thought about the light that illuminated the land. He reminisced about the blue sky and the sun, with its something, sometimes searing and sometimes warm. How were his mother and friends doing? His reminiscence grew into homesickness, and soon Urashimataro was filled with a desire to go home. He mustned his resolve and made clear his device to finally go back to the land. I cannot read cursive, I'm sorry. Lady Otahime consented with grace. Lady Otahime presented Urashimataro with a small box as a parting gift on his way back to the land above. This is called the Tamatibako. It contains all of the time you have spent here. You must never, under any circumstances, open it, Lady Otahime informed him. Tamatibako in hand, Urashimataro departed the Dragon Palace in the way he had entered it, riding on the turtle's back. When he reached the beach from where he had left, it seemed strangely familiar, yet unfamiliar to him. The sea, the sands, and the mountains in the distance were all the same, yet the people in the buildings along the beach seemed different. Upon speaking with one of these strangers, he learned that that 700 years had passed while he was staying at the Dragon Palace. Naturally, Taro's mother and friends were long gone. How worried his mother must have been when he suddenly vanished those 700 years ago. Taro was struck with a shame for all the time he spent carousing in the Dragon Palace. He longed desperately to turn back time and do things differently. Yoshimitaro sur- sur- surmised that if time was sealed within the Tamatobacco, then releasing it would allow him a chance to do it all over. When Yoshimitaro opened the Tamatobacco, white smoke poured out and engulfed him from head to toe. Within the smoke he saw the days of amusement he had spent in the Dragon Palace. Lady Otahime's generous hosting, the dancing fish, and the pleasant music. The sea breeze blew the smoke away and the images faded away. When the smoke cleared, there stood Urashimataro, now an elderly man with white hair and a white beard. Urashimataro despaired upon learning how much time had passed during his palace stay. He opened the Tamatobacco despite Otahime's warning. Smoke poured out from it and turned him into an extremely old man. That was the outline of the passage. So that's what happened. Kurofude looked up and scanned the beach. Sure enough, just like in the illustration, there was an old man slumped near the opened Tamatobacco. Oh, is that? Shirahime exclaimed, standing up. What's wrong? Kurofude called out, but Shirahime didn't seem to hear him as she awkwardly stumbled and jogged her way along the sand. She was heading not for the elderly Urashimataro, but for the turtle resting at the water's edge. It wasn't far off by any means, but by the time she reached the turtle, she was out of breath. Kurofude calmly made his way over while Shirahime was catching her breath. Something about this turtle? Yes. Shirahime finally got her breathing under control again, stooped down and addressed the turtle. If I may, you are Lady Otahime, are you not? Did you just say... Oh fuck. Griffith's brows furrowed skeptically. The turtle's form blurred, shifting into the willowy figure of a princess of the seas. Really now, you knew? Orihime looked off awkwardly and spoke in a sullen tone. Yes, thinking back, I should have pieced it together sooner. Ah, that explains it. Kirifuda nodded in understanding once he got over his surprise. That's why you sensed that double entendre from the turtle's ink. It was Orihime in disguise all along. If carp and flounder can turn into people, it only makes sense that their master Orihime could take on a turtle's form. Or is the turtle the real you? Oh no, this is the real me. Be a dear and don't suggest otherwise. When I first met you, I felt an odd fondness when I looked in your eyes, and it was because they were the same as the turtles. What? It was only a passing feeling, mind you. That's what makes you so scary to me, Princess of White. Your ability to see the water for the waves. It's simply not fair, I tell you. Orihime slumped her shoulders and sighed. Anyone could see that she was overstating her disappointment, but that wasn't so clear. But what wasn't so clear was that deep down she was ashamed that she had deceived them. A shame which was nearly visible in the form of faint shadows in her eyes, the very colour of the blue darkness at the bottom of the sea. I suppose it's obvious enough why I disguised myself as a turtle then. I have the feeling you were familiar with Hiroshima before he rescued you, am I right? Yes, that's right. Now stop before you drive me to a full confession. The beach was reflected in Ultima's piercing gaze, as though she was searching for her past self in the sand. I only turned into a turtle on a lark at first. No offence to you, Lamb times, but I was braced for the worst and then some. But I was smitten from the moment I saw him. Her face. Orihime shifted her gaze to the old man on the shore. The corners of her eyes twinkled like stars. I spent most of my days visiting this land, so far removed from my own home. It was around 200 years by this place's reckoning. Over that time, he grew more tanned and handsome than ever. Nonetheless, I contented myself with simply gazing upon him from afar in the form of a turtle. At first, at least. I knew that the lives of land dwellers and sea dwellers differed far too greatly to expect anything more. I take it was that when the children began bullying you before Hiroshima came to your rescue? And that, in turn, made for a perfect pretext for you to bring him to the deep. I don't care for the way you worded that, but I won't deny the truth of it. That right there was the point when I found myself overcome with a desire to converse with him. And as you entertained him in the Dragon Palace, you found that you did not want him to go back to the land at all. Yes, and that is when I yielded myself to the Adabana spoiler creature. Orihime's expression distorted into a self-deprecating grimace. You know how the rest of the story plays out. Right when I thought I'd swallowed Shirahime, my throat was slit, a blinding light hit me, and before I knew it, it had all come to an end. Orihime's tone was rather flippant, considering this massive storm she had whipped up on the dark seabed. She added a bit more, almost as an afterthought. Obviously things turned out for the best, all things considered, but still. Your plan was hardly a plan at all. In fact, it was downright wishy-washy. Kirifuda said bluntly as Orihime shrugged her shoulders. If you really wanted to make your dream a reality, you should have either removed us immediately or rewritten the book's ending to your liking. Then again, I'm hardly in a position to give constructive criticism. He added after a pause, an unusual admission on his part. His remark likely stemmed from the fact that if he wanted to get something done, he'd do it himself without hesitation. Someone as straightforward as he would certainly never understand why Orihime wavered. Why, I never! You should be grateful for how wishy-washy I was, you know. Kirifuda, Lady Orihime was of two minds. Shirime spoke up hesitantly after seeing Orihime's pride take a hit. She was? I based this only on what I felt. But for all that Lady Orihime wished her time with Hiroshima would last forever, deep down she was already resigned. Resigned to the fact that no longer how hard one clings to time does not last forever. All happy days eventually come to an end. Shirahime, sensing a searing pain in her chest, wilted. She was only interpreting Orihime's feelings, yet it was as if she was looking into a broken mirror. Hey, you never know until you try. It's easy for you to say. You're strong. Orihime's objection confirmed Shirahime's suspicions. All of Orihime's bluster and bravado were gone. There was any hint of spirit in her voice. If I was destined to go mad, I felt it was so much easier to fully embrace madness. Every time one day would end, I would be sad to see him go, and I plead for him to stay just one more day. but every time he happily agreed, I would hate myself for it, for being a wicked woman who twisted the fate of the one she cared for. Orihime looked at the old man, who was standing with his back to them. The Chamberlain on the beach, having lost everything, her face contorted. Yes, I know that in all my dithering I gave him the cruelest fate of all. But I knew this would happen. I've been reminded time and time again of it, that our tale, Taro, is fated to end this way. The more I wished I could sever that fate, the more I came to realize that it was impossible, that it would never work, that there was no defying it. After rising in a crescendo of emotion, her tone lowered again like a setting sun, her voice trembling softly. I was maddeningly upset when you defeated me, but now I'm relieved, so terribly relieved. Now it's over, and it's not my fault, it's fate's fault that he's been reduced to a lonely old man. Orihime bowed her head and covered her mouth with her hand. I'm sorry. Her words weren't intended for anyone, yet they Fuck, I accidentally clicked. Oh wait. Yet they reached Orihime and Kurafude all the same, standing as close by and as silently as they were. Shirahime and Kurafude exchanged glances. Kurafude looked at the illustrated book, and Shirahime followed his eyes, picking up on what he was going for. Orihime, you said he was a lonely old man, but the story is not yet over. What? Orihime whispered weakly before looking up. Shirahime held the illustrated book forth so that it was reflected in Orihime's gloomy eyes and turned to the final page. What? Then something strange happened to Taro. That miserable old man transformed into a crane. The crane flapped its newfound wings and took flight from Mount Horai. At the same time, Lady Orihime transformed herself into a turtle and set out for Mount Horai as Taro had. When reunited on Mount Horai, they got married and lived happily ever after. The fuck? What in the world is this? Orihime exclaimed incredulously as she stared out at the scene. It had transitioned from a midsummer beach to a mystical mountain enshrouded in mist. What did you do? What did you two do? I've never heard of any of this. We merely took the Adabana spoilers ink, thing that came from you, and added it to the book. I feel like I've seen this ending before, long ago. Kurafude said as he tilted his head while trying to remember. This illustrated book had a number of different variations, I think. But all of them are still Taro. I bet that's why the book accepted this new ending. But that's... of all the overly contrived, ridiculous notions. Do you mislike it? Do you dislike it? Dislike it? Natime repeated in a tone of clear denial. Her eyes were focused on a single point in the distance. There stood a graceful bird. It was craning its neck to and fro as though looking for someone. Urashima, wait to, Lady Orihime. Yes, I got that, thank you. Orihime nodded with a huff of it, Shirahime's unsolicited but kind words of encouragement. Well, here goes nothing. I'd hate to see him abscond while I'm standing here complaining. Her gaze had a look of bravery and determination. She had the look of someone ready to run into the arms of the happiness that awaited them. But, in all seriousness, thank you for this utterly ludicrous happy ending. Orihime gave one of her signature smiles, a look filled with the beauty and mystery of the sea itself. I hope you enjoy your happiness. Later. No, I will. You two take care of yourselves now. Orihime gave them a simple goodbye and turned on her heels. But before she left, she sobbed herself as if remembering something at last second. Then she turned around and made her slick way over to Shirahime. Is something the matter? Shirahime was taken aback by how near Orihime drew, something Orihime paid no mind to as she tugged Shirahime close. I've never got one last little tidbit for you. Oh wait, I have got one last little tidbit for you, right? Oh no, that's the fucking book. This. That no one else meant to hear this. Wait, I've got one last little tidbit for you. Shirahime could guess from how quietly Orihime whispered that no one else was meant to hear this. I'll bet you don't know the name of the emotion I feel for that man, do you? It has a name? Oh yes, a name with an ever so lovely ring to it. Orihime took Shirahime's hand and traced a single kanji character on it. When she had finished, she held the hand and pressed it to Shirahime's chest as though branding her heart with it. It's called love. The breath in her ear and the ticklish sensation in the palm of her hand combined within Shirahime. Love. Its meaning clicked with her immediately. It was like a firmly closed bud within her had suddenly burst into bloom. What was that about? Kirifuda asked once Hime was gone. He had drawn away discreetly before their talk. He wasn't expecting much of an answer after all. This was girl talk. And he was right. Shirahime shook her head with no hint of timidness. She answered with her hand still held to her chest, still savouring that warmth within. Nothing really. She recalled the presence from beyond the white fog, yet the wave of emotions she felt as she did carried not only fondness, but fear too. She simply told me a new word. Rishimataro at the end. The illustrated book of Rishimataro has been completed. Okay, I'm going to click once until someone says something. Okay, there we go. Now, this is where I'm going to end off this video. I do hope you enjoyed this episode of Adabana Odd Tales. I will record another one relatively soon, much sooner than the time spent between this episode and the last one, but not many people watch this series anyway, so it doesn't really matter when I make the next one, but I will make it at some point. You got my word for that, anyone who's made it to all the way to the end. But yes, so I will see you all in the next one. Goodbye.